Hello and welcome to episode number 20 of Show Us Your Kit. Today I'm joined by one of the most experienced broadcasters in the Midlands, having recently left BBC WM following 35 years of service. She's also a lifelong Wolves fan and has been the chair lady of Wolves Women for over 20 years. I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast Jenny Wilkes. Jenny, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you, Tom. Nice to be here in my house.
Yeah, well, you've got quite a collection behind you, which we'll get into in a minute. We haven't had any cardboard cutouts of the person I'm interviewing either yet, so that's quite impressive. And obviously, Stevie Bull and Robbie Keane to the side of you. So, tell us about how you came to support the Wolves then.
It was all down to my dad. He was a Wolves fan, and actually his best mate was an Albion fan, and they used to go every week. One week they'd go to the Wolves, both of them, and the next week they'd go to the Albion. It's not like that anymore. So he used to take me at Christmas. So my first game, I was about 10 against Stoke. So that was what I remember. And we used to go, not that often, but we used to go sort of Christmassy time, Boxing Day, or over New Year, sit in the John Island stand as it was then. But just got me into it. It wasn't until much later that I sort of started going more regularly. And I was doing when I was doing a programme on Radio WM, Fast Forward, my pop show, which used to have goal flashes in it. It was the days before commentaries, so we used to have goal flashes from Molineux and other grounds as well. So and then I started going then. In fact, I used to it was when Graham Turner was the manager. Used to watch the game in the John Island stand in a box with Anne Turner, Graham's wife, and family. We used to watch from there. That was in the days when there was only the John Island stand open, and it was terrible. And Graham Turner used to sit in the what is now the Billy Wright stand on the opposite side, just high up, so he could see the game. But he was the only one allowed in there because it was condemned. Everything was condemned, wasn't it? It was all missing. And we used to watch from there. But if you watch from the John Island stand, anybody who sits in the steeple now will know you have to watch like this.
Yeah. But so those days then, the 70s and the 80s, how much of those days can you really remember, like the 74 Cup final or 1980 League Cup final?
No, I don't think I was following it that closely then. I think when I was younger, the first thing I really remember was the Sherpa Van Trophy final was the big thing that I went to. Hence here's my shirt. And I did a programme from the Sherpa Van Trophy final from Wembley Way. And I actually had my hair dyed gold and black for the occasion, like you do. And I had it done. We went down the day before because the programme was like in the morning, obviously before the sports show. So I had my hair dyed the day before, ready to go down, and went down to stay with a mate, Alan Dedicoat, who's the voice of the Balls from the Lottery. And the voice of Ridley. He's a really good mate, and stayed with him. So he said, let's go out for a meal the night before. But there's me with my golden black hair. And actually, the hairdresser had said to make it golden black, the best way to do it was to separate the gold from the black. So she'd actually done it with, I've got a big gold spike on the top and two black spikes sticking out the side. So I did look like a punk rocker. Yeah. And we went to this restaurant that was like his regular place that was, not posh, but the sort of place where you didn't have people looking like me. When you walked in, they were a bit sort of, who is this that you brought with you? But he sweet talked them and it was okay. We were fine.
Was there any part of you that thought about doing that for our recent Wembley visit?
No. Good job, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But I remember that I'd arranged to meet Anne Turner and all the wives of the players on Wembley Way so she could come and talk to us beforehand during the programme. And because the crowds were so immense and there were just people everywhere, they just never got to us on time. So that they never made the programme. They actually made it after the programme had finished because it was just so chaotic. But
as we're talking about it, then the Sherpa Van Trophy, because it's not something that, it's just before I was born, but it's often referenced as being the start of this renaissance then in the 90s. So just talk us through the game then itself, or through the aftermath of it. What was it like in the town?
Oh, it was amazing. I think it was the time when we just started that journey back up through the league. So from the 4th division to the 3rd division that we did as well at the same time, and all the success that was going to come with it. So it was just the start of that. It was 2-0, we beat Burnley with goals from Andy Much and a lovely free kick from Robbie Dennison that I was looking at again the other day, actually. 80,000 people as well at Wembley. And I think then the Sherpa Van Trophy, and people like poo-pooed it. And it's been called so many different things as well, hasn't it, over the years, the Leyland Daff and whatever else it was. But, if you're a Wolves fan and that's what Wolves are doing and they're in the 4th division and, this is going to be your big game, then it was absolutely massive. And it was record breaking, I think, for the Sherpa Van at Wembley as well, to have 80,000 people there. It was brilliant. So, yeah, that's just sort of, I just love the occasion. And I picked this shirt out because it's from that game, but also because it's one of the type of shirt that I like, that's just simple gold and black.
I see. Yeah, well, that's something that we've, the guests on this podcast have talked about, the colour, because it's an enigma, the old gold colour, because it doesn't exist. It's very difficult to get on a shirt, and it ends up looking orange. But I think you are right. That's probably as close as you could possibly get to the old gold.
Yeah, I like it.
Right, then, as we're talking about shirts, then let's have a look at your first shirt, your first Wolves pick.
It's this one. So, do you like this one? So this also is like you're playing gold and black.
Yeah.
Because I do like how it's got, but I don't know if you can see it from here. It's got wolves' heads within the fabric.
Okay, yeah, nice. That's from the early 90s, isn't it? I'd guess.
Yeah, that's from between 1992. They were wearing this. This is actually a genuine shirt, as worn by Keith Downing.
Oh wow!
Here, it's been in my loft actually. It's a bit whiffy. and that one that's there on the wall, which is Bully, is from the same load of shirts that I actually had given to me by the club, because I was doing a charity. We used to do charity football matches at Radio WM, and we used to some of the people like Ian Winter, who was at WM then, who went on to Midlands today. Tim Beach and Malcolm Boyd and used to play, and then we'd rope in people like Dennis Mortimer to come and be ringers. So Wolves gave me a load of we finished with them shirts from the season. So it's actually got the Football League badge on the sleeves as well. So that was Bully's shirt from that same kit that I'm going to sign and framed it. But I just like how it's simple.
My first memories of football are without the names on the back, and they just had 1 to 11 on the pitch, and I miss those days, even though they're very, very, very hazy memories of mine. And I remember when they first had names on the back, I thought, oh my god, like it was a big thing getting promoted to the Premier League and having your names on the back of a shirt. But I did prefer those simpler days. Yes,
simple. And I definitely didn't like that one with the tyre tracks running over it.
Oh, didn't you?
Like that. No.
That's a guilty pleasure of mine. I do like that one with So, well, just talking about those days then. So I did a bit of research on you this morning, and one of the things that came up was that you interviewed Graham Turner in his office with a bucket in the corner. So those kind of days in the early 90s, late 80s, did there feel like there was a big connection between the community and the club, rather than now when we're this enormous, entity, there's no sort of connection between the fans and the players? It doesn't feel like anyway. Do you prefer it, those sort of, when we were not so good on the pitch, but there was a bigger connection?
I like being good on the pitch. I do like that. I think it was nice because it was a real family club, and I did like that about it. But the club was really struggling financially, so that stand that was condemned, and fans weren't allowed in that stand, but they still had in that stand. Graham's office was in there, so with a bucket in the corner, literally to catch the drips, and like cockroaches on the floor, and it was that bad. And then there was the Golden Room, where after the game they used to take the directors' wives and directors And because when I was hanging out with Anne, it was her job to look after the directors' wives, while the directors went off and went into the main boardroom, but the women weren't allowed in there. So
Oh my gosh.
Anne had this little cubby hole off the golden room, and it was literally tiny, like a cubby hole with a little fridge. And I used to just go and help her entertain the directors' wives in this tiny little cubby hole, while the men went off to discuss the football. Yeah, so see, that was a thing that I really didn't like about it. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, the family feel of it was great. That was really nice. But that sort of stuff, I think we've come a long way, haven't we? But that was pretty a long time ago, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's unbelievable for somebody like me to hear that there was such segregation at the football just between genders. It's crazy. But then you then interviewed, or I don't know, interviewed, but you certainly broadcasted alongside Billy Wright and Frederick Puskás on the pitch in 1993. What was that like?
Yeah, this is the programme actually. From that game. So when they played Honved, so that was when they officially opened the Billy Wright stand after they'd finished it, and that was at the game where the floodlights actually went out, which was a bit ironic, wasn't it? Because we were celebrating the 50s floodlit games, but the floodlights went out during, and I was on the pitch in my tracksuit. This is another thing I found in the loft. This. Although I don't know whether, I think this might have been, I think the date of this might be a bit later than that, but I used to wear this tracksuit, look. It's got my name on the back.
Oh, no. Nice.
Run around the pitch. So I was on the pitch with my radio mic, like talking to people on the pitch and doing some interviews, and that's when the floodlights went out. But afterwards, we were lucky enough to go into the boardroom. That's when women were allowed in the boardroom then. Sometime later, in the brand new Billy Wright stand, which obviously was amazing compared to what it used to be like. And I actually got that signed by Puskás and Billy Wright. It's faded a little bit, but it is signed by them, which was amazing. But Billy Wright, I got to know him a little bit, and when you talk about how things have changed, in his day, he used to go to the match on the bus.
Yeah.
You know, a star player used to go to the match on the bus, and you know, he used to have a chat with the fans on the way. I mean, can you imagine that?
I know, and they always tell stories, don't they, about like Albion fans catching the bus the other way would always be taunting the Wolves players or the Wolves fans. It's difficult to imagine, but it's a time that I would prefer to live in, I think. But
I mean, Billy Wright used to say that he played for the Wolves because, you know, he was from Shropshire, wasn't he? It was like his team, and he wanted to play for the team, and he wanted to pull on the gold and black shirt of Wolves. And I can remember him saying to me, "It's just not like that now. That is not what the players are about. It's all about money." And
I mean, you look. Yeah, and you look at our team now, although, like you said, it's fantastic on the pitch, there's not a single local lad in the squad at all, which is, you know, the price you have to pay for success. I remember thinking that when we were down in League One and we had all this group of local players, Jack Price and Danny Bart, that came through, but they had a very, very low ceiling in comparison to our lofty ambitions as football fans. Let's have a look at your second shirt then. So I've asked you for a non-Wolves shirt. How have you managed?
So this is a Wolves women's shirt.
Very nice.
So can you see? So this is from the
early 2000s, yeah.
2001, 2002, I think it was. I don't like this colour, by the way. This is a colour I really don't like.
I know, as we were saying about the old gold, that is
like
brown,
like
yeah.
Brown. But obviously we were using the same shirt, but it's got our own sponsor on it, which was J Bishop. So that was so 1999 was when John Richards asked me if I might be interested in getting involved with Wolves Women. And then John Richards was what was he called? Managing Director?
Chief Executive, something like that, yeah.
at Wolves, and Wolves Women was like a separate entity, if you like, who had got permission to use the name of Wolves, but wasn't anything to do with the club. And the club used to bung them like 400 quid a season or something to try and help them out. And they were really struggling. And I think they'd come to John and said, what can we do? And John came to me, and said, might you be interested in, getting involved in Wolves Women and maybe being the chairperson or chair or whatever. I say chair now. I used to say chairperson, but I say chair now. So I was like, oh yeah. He knew I was a Wolves fan. I was working at Wolves and I used to work in the corporate areas. So going around and interviewing people before the game.
Yeah.
And he knew I was a Wolves fan. And also one of my friend's daughters, Claire Herman, or Claire Hakeman as she is now, used to play for the girls. I used to go and see her playing for the girls. So I watched them. So I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then just ended up so deep in this thing. So we got a committee together with Rachel Hale-Flint, got Rachel on board. She was at the club then. She was sort of helping out with PR stuff then. So got Rachel on board and some of the people who worked at the club in marketing. So we got sort of, it's like a club buy-in, I suppose. Got a sponsor on board, which was Jay Bishop, who they were a sponsor at the club as well for the men. And then got a sports match for the sponsorship as one of the things where you could go out and sort of get it matched to get more money in. Started out like that really, and then got Dennis Mortimer to be manager, which obviously raised the profile and really helped us profile wise. And it has been, it's not been an easy road. And there's been lots of ups and downs along the way. And obviously John didn't stay too long after that. And it was more difficult when Jez Moxie was there to get the support of the club. So for a lot of the time we were just sort of doing our own thing. So I was the person who was responsible for booking the coaches and buying the kit and making sure all those things happened. And gradually over the years the club managed to get more and more involved. So it started off with the youth teams. So we were running youth teams then. We ran everything from under 10s right through to the seniors, and started off with youth teams that the club got involved by running a centre of excellence, which was something run via the FA. You could apply to run a centre of excellence, which the club did. And then that meant that they were running the girls' team. So we sort of handed them over to the club, I suppose. And then further down the line, then handed over the seniors, but that's been much more recent. And it's only been, this is only the second season that the players haven't had to pay to play. So up until 2 seasons ago, they had to raise £300 each to play. So either by paying it themselves or getting sponsorship. So we've definitely come a long way. So now, obviously, Wolves pay that so that the girls don't have to pay. We're helped out a lot with kits and coaches, and they're paying for everything now. And we're now and we've always been part of what was the foundation. What is the foundation? What was the community trust it was called before, and then now it's the foundation. So all the coaching has been run through that, so the coaching is run through the foundation. So we've always been part of the foundation, but now we're part of the club itself, the whole, rather than just the foundation side. So the coaching still run through the foundation. So now my job is much more sort of as a figurehead really, and more ambassadorial. And it's not my job to pay any bills or book the coaches or any of that. So, but we still do have a lot of volunteers. So we've got a volunteer committee, and who help out with sort of media stuff. But also in the last couple of years, Wolves media team have taken us on board. So they now run all of the social media and the stuff on the website with help from us. But we've got media students from Derby Uni do the tweeting and the write the match reports, but overseen by Wolves media team. Okay. And I'm sort of involved in that as well. So I help out with the PR, and I sort of liaise with the league on the PR side of things. So it's, but it's very much more, it's a Wolves thing now. It belongs to Wolves, and which is brilliant. and Wolves are a lot more interested now. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, I couldn't believe that. I remember Jeff Shee announcing a couple of years ago that they were going to take a lot more interest in the girls' team, and that
Yeah.
I think are they allowed to train now at the Compton?
Yeah, that's the other big thing with training at Compton, which is amazing.
Yeah, I couldn't, and then the having to pay subs. Like I pay subs for cricket, but that's playing for Cosley, not for Wolves and representing Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yeah.
But they've obviously invested a lot in the whole of the club, Fosun. But I remember hearing Jeff Shee talking about the way that the women's season ended last year with the pandemic, which when researching this morning, it was made null and void on the 27th of March, which if you think about the time that was given to the men's game, I think it's ridiculous. Why they couldn't have just stopped and restarted like they did with the men's game? It was ridiculous because you had an excellent season last year, didn't you?
Yeah. So we were on the verge of promotion. Well, I think another couple of games and we would have done it. And just to have it null and voided, like you say, so quickly, because with the Women's Super League, they just waited. They waited and waited and waited. And then they ended up doing it by like a points system. And they did actually promote and relegate and have champions and put teams into Europe, all based on the point system. Yeah. But our league just made a really quick decision. It's worrying now about this time because obviously that was all null and voided. We started again. We started late. This is like the third time we've stopped because of coronavirus, and now we're just worried. We're top of the league by quite a long way. We haven't lost a game yet. We were due to play the FA Cup on Sunday, and obviously that's not happening either. So who knows what's going to happen? And we're in the what is the equivalent to the fourth tier. We should have been in the third tier, all being well this season, and we're not. So that's holding us back as well.
It is a real shame. Did you see any uptake in interest after the Women's World Cup last year? Was there more people at the games or more people interested in joining the younger teams? Yeah,
there's definitely been an increase over the last few years, I think. I think the main thing has been coverage, media coverage. So the fact that you can now see women's football on the telly quite a lot. The fact that you see cup games on the BBC, BT cover women's football a lot. The BBC and Sky have women's football programmes. So all of that, I think it's much more noticeable to people. And I think even like women's football results are, you just see them all the time. You see them on Sky Sports, you see them coming up all the time, which you never would have done in the past, never. So I think all of that, and also the fact that there's a big push to get more women into sports media, and there's a lot more of that going on as well. With Alex Scott and Karen Carney and people that you see a lot more, even on like Match of the Day and stuff. I think that's made a big difference. So people take it a bit more seriously. It's always hard to get, hardened football fans who think it's only about the men's game to take it seriously. But, you always get those people who say, do they swap shirts at the end? Or don't watch this. But it's much, much better. Yeah. Much, much better than it used to be. But it is a long slog. And when I started getting involved, the FA was saying then in 2000, the FA was saying, we're making the women's game professional. And it just took years and years and years and years. Yeah. And remember, the women used to play football in the First World War. And I think that's something a lot of people don't know about, that during the First World War, lots of men were away fighting. Women started playing football, and they had massive crowds, like 80,000 people at women's football games, and they were doing really well and getting loads and loads of support. And then the FA decided that it wasn't suitable for women to play football, so they banned women from playing at FA affiliated grounds. So all the women's game got pushed onto like park pitches and that sort of stuff. And it was 50 years until the FA embraced the women's game again. So although they give you all this stuff about their big supporters, but it wasn't the people who are there now.
Yeah, well,
I'm not holding it against them.
Obviously. So 20 odd years you've been chair of the Wolves women. What's your hopes then for the future of the team?
I would love to think that we can get into the professional league. we've got a way to go. We're in the fourth tier, so only the second tier is semi-pro, and then the Super League is the top tier. So we've got a way to go, and to get there, it's not just about the football. It's also about, you have to commit the money and the support and the sponsorship and all the rest of it. So obviously all of that is down to whether Wolves would be up for doing that. And I'd like to think that they would now, and we would get that support. So yeah, hopefully, but it's a long slog. Well, I can't, it's mad to think I've been involved in it, over 20 years now. And we're not in that much of a better position in terms of what we're doing on where we are in the league, but we're in a massively better position in terms of how the club is. Our facilities and our support from the club is like you would be getting in the Super League. So we just need to get there.
Yeah, and just talking about support from the club, can you talk us through this picture here?
That's me and Jeff Shee. When he came to a game in Oswald Street, it was in the summer. Oh, there's me.
There we go.
Jeff came to a game, and I didn't know he was going to come. And I was on the way to the game and got a call from Jeff's PA to say he'd like to come to the game and could he come? So, and could I sort him out a parking space and a seat? So, so we did. Got him a space coned off. Unfortunately, there weren't any seats at this ground, as you can see. I did get him a chair, but he was happy to stand up. So he came and watched the game, which was absolutely brilliant, just to see him watch the game and said hello to Dan McNamara, the manager. And it was just brilliant to have him there. It was just really good. And he's interested now. He's interested in what we're doing and how we're getting on, which is great to see. He sent the players a letter. Every player had a letter, and every member of the club and the volunteers at the end of last season, when it was null and voided, just to say, just a personal letter to say how sorry he was to see that it had happened. So that's really good support, and he's mentioned Wolves women, like you say, in some of his statements, his press statements and stuff. So it's brilliant to see that. It's really great to have that support. That's what it's all about, and without it, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I bet he didn't think when he came from China that he'd be asking for a chair. That's not the executive lifestyle that he signed up for, was it?
It's not. No.
All right, let's move on to the next part of the show then. Hang on 1 second. This isn't very professional of me, is it? Bo I asked for a photo of you in a sporting context, and I've just been looking at it. I've been zooming into all the different parts of it to see what I can spot. So it's a cartoon of you from 1996, I think is the date on the bottom.
Yeah.
So talk us through this picture.
So this is when I scored a penalty at Villa Park.
Oh wow!
I know, yeah. So it was 10th of January 96 was the game, and it was Villa Wolves, a League Cup quarter final.
Right.
Which Villa won 1-0. So we'll just gloss over that.
We'll gloss over that.
But the halftime entertainment was me and some colleagues from Radio WM, Malcolm Boyden and Carl Chin, who you can see on the picture there, and in a penalty shootout to entertain the crowd. And I think the goalie was one of the Villa youth team goalies, and we just took it in turns to have a shot on goal. And as you can see from the cartoon, Carl Chin and Malcolm Boyden both didn't score, and I did. And here is my trophy.
Oh wow!
Look at that. It says, "Congratulations, Jenny Wilkes scored a penalty at Villa Park on the 10th of January 1996." It was sent to me by a listener, Dave Bicknell. So Dave, if you're out there, I've still got the trophy. Thank you. And Ron Smudge Smith, who was an artist friend of mine, did the cartoon and sent it me. That was I don't have any photos of it, but I just want you to know I scored a penalty at Villa Park.
Well, I bet there's a few Wolves players who've missed penalties at Villa Park in the past, so that's something to be proud of. Well, just as we're talking about the radio as well, then, so you've been broadcasting since you were 14 starting in the hospital radio, Dudley and District Hospital Radio. How do you get into radio? I've always wanted to be on the radio myself. Any advice for anybody who out there who would like to do it?
Well, I was at school in Dudley. I wanted to be a fashion designer. That's what I was thinking. And then my friend Anthony Stewart started doing hospital radio at Dudley, and he said to me, "Oh, I think you'd love this. Well, you should come down. I think you'd really like it." So not anything I'd ever thought of. So went along, and I did really like it. We used to do a program every week and go around the wards, collect the requests, and then play the requests. And then we just got involved doing, carnivals. We used to have a floating Tipton carnival and decorating stuff. Just got really into it, and I just took to it. But I remember when I finished at school when I was 18. This was at Dudley Girls High School, and I remember saying to the careers teacher, "Oh, I'd like to work in radio." And she said, yes, dear, but think of a sensible job. So I was a bit like miffed by that, and I didn't really know what to do next. And then I started looking at degrees, and I was looking at like drama and stuff, thinking what could I do? And I went to a careers office in Wolverhampton. I remember going, and somebody suggested to me this new course that was started in communication studies, and there were only 2 in the country. There was one in Ireland and one in Coventry. And I ended up going to Coventry, to cut a long story short. And I was quite late joining, I just got on there late, just before the course started, because I think I'd spent the whole summer not really knowing what to do and applying for various things, and then just found this. So did that. So I did communication studies at Coventry. It was Lanchester Polytechnic then. And it was... there was some practical stuff, but there was quite a lot of just theory and things. But there wasn't a lot of hands-on experience. So I just started writing around to loads of radio stations to see if I could get some work experience. And I've got literally in the attic, I've got a folder full, because this is in the days of letters. Yeah. A folder full of letters going, no thanks. Well, at least they replied. But only one person replied to say yes, and that was a chap called Mike Owen from BRMB Radio in Birmingham, the commercial station. And he said, "Oh, yeah, come and do some work experience," which I did. So I did that probably for 18 months while I was at uni. So I used to go from Coventry to Birmingham, and I used to do write travel news and that sort of stuff. And then when I'd finished my degree, I got a part-time job there doing travel, and then eventually got a full-time job. And started doing broadcasting quite early on. So I was doing things like operating the radio car and driving the desk. I used to drive the desk, so operate the equipment for Tony Butler for his Saturday sports show. Is that before your time, Tom?
I can remember Tony Butler. All I remember is he used to give out whistles as his prize. He had Butler's blowers. That's all I can remember.
That was much later. Yeah. So in the early days at BRMB, again before commentary, on a Saturday afternoon, his programme was like... it was a sport and music show, and there was no commentary. But and that was the days when all your teams would be playing at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon.
What's that like?
So would just go round the grounds. So he'd have a report from the Wolves game, and then play a record, and then a report from the Blues game, and play a record. And then if there was a goal, we'd stop and we'd go to the team that to the reporter where the goal had been scored. And I used to drive the desk for that programme. And it was also my job to pick the music. That was in the days before computers pick music, which is what happens now, kids. Computers pick music. But I used to go into the record library where it was full of vinyl, and I used to pick out all of Tony Butler's favourite tunes to keep him in a jolly mood and play them through the afternoon. That was my first job. But it wasn't long after that I got a show. I did a pop show called What Do You Want? With D's in it, on a Sunday afternoon, aimed at young people. So I did that for a few years. I was at BRMB for about 5 years altogether, and then this job came up at Radio WM, which I applied for.
So how has radio changed then in the 35 years that you've been broadcasting at WM?
Massively. I mean, I think being a presenter hasn't changed very much, because being a presenter is the same thing, but all the technical stuff around it has changed a lot. I mean, when I used to go out as a reporter with a portable tape recorder called a Ewer, like a German thing, and it was like a really heavy handbag, really heavy, and it's got on it a 15-minute reel of tape. You probably don't know what I'm talking about. So a reel of
I know what tape is. I can remember tape.
So like it was like reel to reel tape.
Yeah.
So you go out with 15 minutes of tape and do your interview. You bring it back, and then you'd edit it by getting the tape and putting it on a little splicing block, and then with a razor blade, you cut out the bits that you didn't want with a razor blade, and then stick together. So when you do digital editing, and you cut out what you don't want. Well, you'd be doing that physically with a razor blade and cutting out a piece of tape, and then you get the two bits where you've taken the piece out, and you'd stick them together with a bit of sticky tape.
That's mad. I mean, I find it hard enough when I've got it on the screen, but if I'd cut something out, it would be absolute mayhem. I'd be losing stuff all over the place.
And when I was doing Fast Forward at WM, and I used to have the sports programs, we used to record, because you weren't allowed to have commentary on air. That wasn't allowed then. So we used to record off-air commentary. So the reporters would be at the games, and they wouldn't have to talk all the time, but obviously if it looked like there was going to be a goal, they'd start commentating, and there'd be a tape running all the time, recording it. So we got a recording of the goal.
Right.
So somebody would be sitting, and this was usually Pete, my other half. This was his job. He would be sitting there monitoring the people who were talking into the tape. And when a goal went in, he'd have to stick a bit of paper in, so it was sticking up out of the tape, so that after that goal had gone in, he would then start another tape rolling, and then stop that one, and then edit the goal out, and then put it into another piece so I could play the goal out. Oh, wow. That sounds mad, doesn't it?
It sounds a lot more technical and a lot cleverer than nowadays. Yeah. I've just bought myself a record player during this lockdown. I've bought lots of vinyl and stuff like that now. And that to me is magic. How you can have a bit of plastic that's got this music on it, and then you put a needle on it and it plays. I can understand recording something like this and then it's just on the computer. But pressing music into a bit of plastic is unbelievable. I don't know.
That's how I used to play my records. When I did the original Soul and Motown show, which was on a Monday night, Soul and Motown Monday on Radio WM, a long time ago. I don't know, how many years ago it was. I was playing vinyl. I mean, I still played vinyl until recently, but not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to play. It was all vinyl.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask you about that as well. So your Soul and Motown. There's a couple of people in my school now that I work in their 50s, and they're all talking about Soul and Motown, and they're talking about all these very famous, artists from the past. But I don't know any. So can you give me somewhere to start with Soul and Motown?
Oh, that's really hard. Somewhere to start.
Well, who's your top artist? The top.
No, I would say start with like the likes of the Temptations and the Four Tops and the Supremes. They're like Motown, and then when you get more into the northern, so Northern Soul was something that was in America, and artists in America were making this music, and people in the north of England, so clubs like Wigan, were getting hold of this music and playing it and saying, blimey, isn't this amazing? And the artists didn't even know that they'd got this cult following called Northern Soul in the UK. And Edwin Starr is somebody who is one of these artists who I got to know a little bit. So he was in America, didn't know anything about it. When he came to England, I think because people were asking him to come, and was just absolutely gobsmacked by the fact that all these people knew all his tracks and did this peculiar Northern Soul dancing to the tracks. And then he stayed. So he lived in Polesworth for quite a few years, just outside Tamworth, because the UK was the place to be, because that's where people liked his music. So it's Northern Soul's a bit of a slightly different thing from Motown, but similar, I suppose. It's really hard to describe, isn't it? Really hard to explain.
Well, I can't believe that Wigan was the centre of any kind of musical revolution.
Yeah, but Wolverhampton as well, and the Black Country was also really, really big on the Northern Soul front, and still is. And there are still loads and loads of Northern Soul DJs who do when there's not coronavirus,
Yeah.
who you can go along to their gigs, and they're still playing the music. It doesn't lose its appeal. And the other good thing about it is, I think there are a lot, because like you say, it is people in the 50s and 60s who are from that era, but young people are getting really into it as well. So there are a lot of young people.
Yeah, well, it's getting sampled a lot, isn't it? In like rap music and
true.
hip hop music more regularly now. So yeah, I think, well, I'll definitely give it a go. Its soul is something that's missing on my musical radar, unfortunately. Yeah,
You need to give it a go. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and like I mean, there's all sorts of different northern soul, but yeah, you just have to listen, and you'll see.
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Right then, so the final, or nearly the final part, is the second picture. Now, you've sent me quite a few of your travels for the last year or so. No, I bumped into you, didn't I, in Turin?
Yeah.
Picking up the tickets of the morning. So just talk us through your travels across Europe, because you didn't just go to Turin as well. You also went to Braga.
No. And I've been abroad actually a few times watching football. So we went to the World Cup in France '98, which was amazing. Right. Not watching England, but watching whoever we could get tickets for. So I've got a couple of tickets here. Sweden v Bulgaria and Switzerland, Croatia. Oh, those are from Euro 2004. That was in Portugal. So I went there, World Cup in France, and Euro 2000 in Belgium and the Netherlands. So I've done a bit of that, but I think, and that was brilliant. It was just brilliant to get that atmosphere. But this is the first time, obviously, following my own club in Europe. It was just something else. And Turin, I absolutely loved it. And we made a week of it. So we were in Turin for a week. And that's me and Pete, my other half, circled in the middle of those crazy fans. And you know what that was like.
Well, you've got another picture which I'll try and get up for us now, just outside the ground.
Yes, which just sort of says it all.
Which was not an enjoyable experience at all beforehand. But now, I mean, you look back to that with the beautiful sunset above the stadium. You could hear the ultras in the ground as well, to creating this atmosphere. It felt like we were being intimidated by the police and stuff, like, welcome to Turin, this is how it's going to be. But then the way that we played on the pitch was unbelievable. You think about the Wolves teams in my lifetime, we'd have crumbled under that amount of pressure, but we're just so good.
Oh, we were absolutely amazing. But like you said, that thing where there was a bus from town, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Where you got on the bus and then we were just like, I don't know, an hour standing on the bus waiting for it to go, thinking they were going to go regularly, but they didn't. They all went at once. And then when we got there, and everybody got off the buses all at the same time, and there was like one little entrance to get through. Yeah. And they were checking people's passports and all sorts, and it was just taking ages and ages and ages. And Wolves fans, can you imagine what it was like when Wolves fans stuck outside and it was getting closer and closer to kick off and they couldn't get in? If you could just imagine what they were saying. But I think that picture just sort of sums it up a bit. And when we got in, we literally got in just, I don't know, 5 minutes before kickoff, I think. And there were no stewards, there was nobody to show you where to go. We literally went roughly where we thought we had to go and just stood somewhere. We never found where our seat was supposed to be. Did you find your seat?
We actually climbed up to there was a second tier, and we climbed up to the second tier where there was no fans at all, and we had acres of space. We loved it.
we were so crammed in to where we were, and that there were obviously more people on the road than there should have been. And when our first goal went in, that Jota goal, some bloke from behind us just literally landed on top of it. It just came through the crowd. It was absolutely mad because the drinks went up in the air and people were flying everywhere. It was completely bonkers, and it was so hot as well, wasn't it? It was so hot, and just a brilliant experience. I think Braga was something.
Well, I was just gonna get that picture up as well now to ask you about that, because I couldn't go to Braga because I was in school, but people who I know who went said that it wasn't quite the same experience. Not just the weather, but just the way that you were treated as well by the local police.
Was terrible. I mean, again, though, we had a week of it, and we had a week in Porto, which was absolutely brilliant. We had a lovely week in Porto, and we had some quite good weather. And it wasn't until that day we went from Porto to Braga on the train, and and it wasn't until we got there that it started to rain, but it absolutely bucketed it down. It was terrible. We met some friends in a hotel. We were all already soaked through. And then we got a taxi to the ground. That's like the outside of the ground. So that's the back of the stand that we were in, that stand. Like, you can see the policemen standing here.
Yeah.
Literally, we would walk through this field, which was covered in mud, and there were rows and rows of police looking like that. And they were literally confiscating everything. They were taking people's phones, handbags, umbrellas, and obviously it was great. We were really lucky that we didn't have our phones taken. We didn't have much with us, but we didn't have our phones taken. So we were really lucky. And then went in right up. We were right up high in that stand. It looked like, I mean, they don't normally get big crowds there, do they? And it looked like nobody had sat on those seats for absolutely years and years and years. They're like covered in bird poo to clean the seat off. It was traumatic. But then
it's a beautiful stadium, isn't it?
So it's what? Sorry.
It's a beautiful stadium inside that quarry.
It's amazing. It is amazing because on that side of it, there's just this cliff face. It's just a really incredible place. But I think it just felt so, I don't know, like you're up against the odds. It was really weird. And obviously we scored 3 goals, didn't we, in the first half? And we were like, it's brilliant. We're winning 3-1. And then they came back and it was 3-3 at the end. And you really felt like, you felt like they were going to win. And it was all going to be even worse than it already was. But luckily they didn't. So I think we were pretty pleased that we managed to get a draw. And then when we came out, it was just as bad when we came out. You couldn't go anywhere. We ended up walking for miles. But we'd arranged to meet some friends in a restaurant, which did actually work, which was brilliant. And it was full of Wolves fans. So that was great. And it was just up the road. So that was great. So, it's still brilliant following your team in Europe. It was still amazing to do.
Were you as ambitious as I was? Did you book your flights or anything to Gdansk?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh.
I was lucky. Did you book your flights to Gdansk?
I did. I went to Madrid in February to watch Real Madrid play against Celta Vigo or somebody, and then I came back and I thought, it was really cheap to go to Madrid and stuff. Let's have a look at Gdansk. It was 60 quid for a flight for that week. I thought, well, it would be stupid not to buy flights for that. So I think it's my fault that coronavirus happened, because if I hadn't have booked those flights, it would all be fine. But well.
I've got friends who book flights. So I don't know. It's mad.
I know. Right, and then the final part of the programme is to share a mystery piece of memorabilia, and I'm really excited to talk about this because I told you off air, I got given this for my 12th birthday.
Woohoo, which really makes me feel old. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so this was Wolves, as to my knowledge, have never had like a cup final song before, but this is as close as we came to it in 2003 for the playoff final. So you, Daz Hale, and Mr. Bull, not Alan Bull, yeah. So how did it come to be then? Whose idea was it behind this recording?
I think it was Daz's idea, because he is a bit of a songwriter and singer, and because he was a lead singer of a band, the Money Gods. So he had the idea to rewrite the words of Bruce Chanel's Hey Baby to Hey Jonesy. Excellent, because Dave Jones was the manager. And he rewrote all the words. The biggest problem we had was getting the rights to do it, the copyright clearance. It was a complete nightmare. That was me. I had that job. And it took us absolutely ages to get it sorted. We were talking about it the season before. So luckily we didn't get it cleared for the season before. So we actually managed to get it all sorted. And Alan, Steve's brother, who I know, he's a really good singer. So roped Alan into it. Did get Steve to do some backing vocals, but he's a bit like me. I'm a rubbish singer. And
You're down in the mix.
So yeah, we were trying to be quiet, yeah. So I think you can hear me a little bit on the chorus. So we released it. So recorded it in the garage studio in Cannock. Released it, and it went bonkers. It went absolutely bonkers. So loads and loads of people were buying it. including you having it for your birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It was good. And obviously it was the thing that did the trick.
yeah. Yeah, all those other playoff runs with no song. Look what happened. The only time we had one, we got promoted.
We got promoted, yeah. And so Dave Jones, bless him, I think he was a bit like embarrassed by it, but he did quite like it. Sir Jack loved it, and he had it playing in his car when we had the celebration, the bus trip round Wolverhampton. He was there playing it in his car, so he loved it.
So were you on that day then in May 2003? Were you broadcasting from Cardiff? Were you part of that team?
Yeah, so we did a programme from a pub, the old Monk pub, just outside the Millennium Stadium. It was me and Tony Butler doing the programme, and we had various guests come along to talk to us, including Kevin Rowland, actually, from Dexys Midnight Runners. Various guests came along beforehand, and then we went inside to the game. Woo! And it was brilliant.
What's a game? I know. And I don't know what the right word, but then the opposite of that, the FA Cup semi-final recently. My dad's song, thanks to you, managed to get on the radio. The buzzing the word.
It's a great song as well.
It was, yeah. And I always think what might have happened had we have won the semi-final. Yeah. Would that have become the cup final song for Wolves?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have dreams of like Robert Plant coming to sing it or something mad. It would have been really good. But
can he get it out next time? But he can try it again.
Maybe. Well, he wrote a version for Europe when we got into Europe, but I don't know. He's had plenty of time to think about different songs now during lockdown. He'll have an album like Paul McCartney when he comes back out. But that's the end of the podcast, Jenny. Thank you very, very much for coming on. Really loved all your stories. And it's been a delight to have you on. So you can find Jenny on Twitter at Billy Quiet. But is there anything else you want to promote now you're here?
Well, now I've left the BBC. I'm just available, So if you want to book me for anything, I'm there. I'm hoping to do a bit less. I'm hoping to sort of take it easy a bit, but to do some freelance work. So I am available for voiceover work and hosting events. If we could ever have an event ever again,
via Zoom,
that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's my plan. Yeah, and I also want to do some nice holidays as well. Yeah. And Wolves in Europe again. When's that going to be now? When are we going to do that again?
Not this season, I don't think. Never mind. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for coming on again, Jenny, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye-bye.